So here we have an iPhone 15 Pro Max motherboard, and this motherboard is a two-layer sandwich, which means it is two motherboards that are sandwiched together. And basically anytime we need to do a repair on these motherboards is we have to split them open, do the work, put them back together, we have to reball them. There's a bunch of stuff that is trapped inside. So today we're gonna split it using this I2C T20 heater and using the flat universal plate, because the 14 Pro Max plate, although the boards are very similar, it doesn't fit. Now technically, if I were to get a Dremel, I could probably Dremel this down and make it fit. As you can see, it kind of is very similar design, but it doesn't quite fit. I think this post right here is in the way, and the 5G antenna is also in the way. So with some minor modifications, you could get this to work, but for now, we're just gonna use this flat plate. So stay tuned if you wanna see what the inside of this motherboard looks like. We're gonna look for the charging IC, see if they're using a CD3217 like they do on other USB-C devices like the iPad Pros or the MacBooks. We're just gonna do a visual inspection and then see if we can get it back together. So make sure you guys are subscribed if you like these type of motherboard repair type videos. And let's go ahead and get started. So first I want to show you guys, that the phone is fully working. I haven't done anything to it. So here at the top, there's nothing, there's no message. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi are blue, so they're not grayed out. Also, if you go to cellular, you get this screen that says setup cellular. It doesn't say cellular error or anything like that. Also, if you go to settings, general, about, you'll see that there's a modem firmware value. Now that exact value doesn't matter, it's just that there's a value there. So that will tell you whether the baseband is working on this phone. Baseband is a cellular chip. So yeah, this is all original, fully working. So let's go ahead and open up the phone. Now this phone has already been opened. If you guys wanna see that process, watch my teardown video. Let's go ahead and disassemble this. Or one thing that I mentioned in that teardown video is I was thinking we need to remove the back glass to get the motherboard out, but I think I figured out a way to do it without removing the back glass, which is a huge relief. I was expecting it to be a lot more work. So step one is unplug everything. Now I already have the ear speaker also removed, so just keep that in mind. All right, so this battery has also already been removed, so it opens up really easy. The important part is that you get this all disassembled. This video is not really about the teardown, but I do want to show you guys kind of the technique on getting the wireless flex, getting that unplugged. So now that everything's unplugged, move this 5G flex down like this. There's a flex that kind of wraps around it, and move that, fold that out of the way like this. So this way, this one this way. Fold the cameras up and out like that. This one goes up, this down, this tiny one down here, that goes like at the bottom. It's another antenna. Fold that out of the way. Everything else is unplugged. The 5G flex have already removed it from the side frame. The battery's out of the way, and then you kind of rotate it on its side, and then you turn it like that. So if you turn it like that, then you get access to the plate. This normally has a plate with a screw, and you basically can't get the motherboard out without removing this. So I already have that removed, so you could just pop it out, and now the board comes out. Now keep in mind, it does have a 5G flex soldered on as well. So I don't know why they made this one pluggable, but not this one. It doesn't make sense because they're literally next to each other. All right, so let's do an inspection of the motherboard under a microscope. All right, so this is a battery connector. Let's remove this foam because it's gonna melt. Now here in the US, the US model has the NAND here, whereas I noticed the international model, this is where the SIM slot goes, and then the NAND is over here. So I don't know why they made a different version for the US. In the 14 Pro Max, it was the exact same board for both models, which I have one here by chance. It was like this, the battery connector and then the SIM slot here. But for the 15, battery connector and then the NAND here. So, and the international model actually has the same similar look. So I don't know why they decided to make two different SKUs. But that's what they did. All right, so now let's get rid of these, do whole visual inspection. Let me know down below in the comments if you want me to do demo readings of all the connectors. You know, I could post it on the repair wiki. Let me get rid of these stickers. There's a lot of stickers on this one, by the way. Now, this is the NAND. Now, this phone does support 1 terabyte. So that's why you see extra rows, is so you can fit the bigger NAND in here. This has been true since the 13s, I believe. And then here's that sticker I put on the live stream to label the phone that I'm working on when I was swapping parts. Let's get this one out of the way. So these are all the different camera connectors. So let's go over it. So battery connector, I think this is an antenna, the display connector, charging port connector, another antenna, the power button connector, the cameras. Those look a little beat up. What else goes here? Pretty much camera stuff. The front camera and the Face ID stuff. There's this, another antenna connector here. So these little foam things, I believe, are for water resistance. So if the water does get in, it at least protects the connectors. There's a Prox Flex on the screen. This is another antenna. And yeah, this is, if you worked on the 14 series, it's very similar. Now let's get rid of some of these foam. Let's get rid of some of these stickers here on the sides. There's a lot of them. And here's where you can see the actual sandwich. There's the top board. The interposer is this brown part, or I guess they're all brown, but top board, interposer, and bottom board. Now, when you split these, you keep the interposer and the bottom board as one piece, and then the top board as a separate piece. So basically, you split between these two. And when these phones have a hard drop, what happens is, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's like solder balls in here that they either crack or there's pads that rip. So basically, the top board is the main board with a CPU, and then the bottom board has some accessories or secondary stuff. You know, the Wi-Fi, the baseband. I don't know about this model, but in general, that's how it's been on the previous models. Let's go on this side. So yeah. So, and then looks like this year they added this sticker that kind of wraps around for some reason. And we need to remove them because these are all going to melt with the amount of heat needed to separate. Now these use 220 something Celsius solder. So we got to use really high temps to separate these. So you can see the solder balls there, hopefully. So if you drop your 15 Pro Max, expect these solder balls to crack, and then you have a bunch of issues. So it requires us to split it, reball, and put it back together. Sometimes it requires a bottom board swap. All right, so this is the bottom side. Now, one thing I've noticed compared to previous model is there's no giant sticker here. So like on the 14, there's like a pad like this that kind of protects the board. Oh look, this one kind of fits. On the 14 Pro Max, but this one doesn't have it. I think it's because it is part of the frame. Yeah, I guess it uses this as protection, I guess, or I don't know. But yeah, this is kind of how it's laid out. And this is a 5G antenna as well that is kind of soldered onto the board. So there's a lot of antennas on this phone. So let's go ahead and attempt to split this motherboard. Like I said, I'm using the I2C T20 heater, and we're gonna do, so let me see, let me find a way to hold this board down so it doesn't move around. So this heater has little fingers that I like to call them fingers. Let's see, which basically kind of holds stuff down. although it's not, there's pretty much nowhere to hold the bottom board. So that's gonna suck. So hopefully we have no problems, because we gotta separate this, but it's gonna move around. That's why having a dedicated plate is ideal, because it kind of has posts to hold the board in place. So I'm gonna turn on the heater. You guys can't see it, this sucks, but 200 degrees Celsius. And while it's heating up, I'm gonna show you the 14, because they're very similar, and I have one here, so might as well use it. So see, this is what the 14 Pro Max fits like in the jig, in the plate. It kind of holds it in place, so it kind of it can't move around. And this is what the inside looks like. This is one I need a Reball, but you can see all the major components are in here, including the CPU. On the outside, it's just the NAND and Wi-Fi. On the 15 Pro Max, I don't know what's on here. So I know for sure NAND. These are probably some RF chips, and then nothing else. There's some stuff under these shields. From what I've seen online, they are just random chips. I don't know exactly which ones. I suppose I could look it up. So the heater is already at 165 Celsius. So what I'm gonna start doing to allow us to get in is apply flux through the sides, basically between the top board and the interposer. This is so the solder will flow. Making it easier to separate as well as put back together. If you don't have flux, you're not gonna have a good, nice solder joint. Now I can't wait for I2C to make the jigs or whatever for these. So I'm just injecting flux in here. And also the flux, the way the flux behaves also helps us kind of understand how hot everything is. Because flux, you know, it'll burn or evaporate or smoke. All right, so now this is at 200 degrees. Although I don't know how hot the board is. Also, because I have pressure on both, on this side, most of it, it's not sitting flat. So that kind of sucks. This is not gonna be fun to try to split. So what I like to do sometimes is get a flat tool and then kind of see if I could wiggle in. But I'm not feeling any, I'm feeling a lot of resistance. So I'm actually gonna go up to 210 on my heater. I don't know what kind of screen they use on this heater, but it doesn't come through on the camera. Now, one thing about the 14 Pro Max and now the 15 Pro Max is there's this little metal plate here, which kind of serves as a handle as well. So it might come in handy. So right now I'm just kind of pressing down, hoping to help transfer some heat. Now there is a possibility of using hot air as well to help supplement the bottom heat. Sometimes the heat doesn't transfer enough for what you're trying to do. My tool's not entering. Let me go up to 220 Celsius. I think 220 will be my max. I might use some hot air to help add some heat, because I don't know, because this is a flat plate. The board also is not sitting flat because there's that giant bump on one side. So it could be contributing. What I could also do is remove the fingers, kind of freehand it. Now the likelihood of Apple using different solder is unlikely, so it's definitely going to be the same solder. I think the heat is not easily transferring to this board because of the plates. I think I'm going to have to put the fingers back. So it's definitely hot. I can see the flux smoking, but it's not separating. So this is going to be tricky. So I added some new flux. My tool still struggling to enter. Actually, it's kind of getting through. Not really. Yeah, definitely not. All right, let me try 230. Especially because it's not sitting flat. It's probably the reason why it won't melt. Usually the top side is the part that takes the longest to split on older models. You know what? Let's try some hot air. I'm gonna use 380 Celsius and 50% air on my add-in hot air station. And essentially just gonna go around the perimeter. Let's do this. Let's focus on the bottom side. All right, here it goes. I can feel my tool has entered. All right, this might be tricky. I'm gonna look from the side view. Try to split this. I want to make sure I don't lift too soon, because you might get not rip pads, but you'll have some oxidized pads. And now that I kind of split it, I'm gonna insert my tweezer, see if I can grab it. The goal here is to kind of move back and forth a lot, so you don't concentrate heat in one spot. Oh, here it goes. Hey buddy,
What can I help you?
turn on the fan.
Okay.
So I split it. Oh, look at that. That's weird. Alright, so this is the first look, at least my first look, inside a 15 Pro Max sandwich. And look at that, they put the Wi-Fi chip back on the bottom board. So on the 14 Pro Max is on the top board, now it's back on the bottom board. And like usual, there's some shields inside the sandwich for some reason. I don't know why. This kind of looks like the eSIM chip. So one thing about eSIM is that if you do a bottom board swap, at least on previous models, and you don't transfer over the eSIM chip, it basically, I think part of the IMEI is in that eSIM chip. So if you don't, so one thing I've wondered is, can we use the second IMEI from the eSIM chip to use the phone? So like if you have a phone that's blacklisted and the eSIM IMEI is blacklisted, but you swap the eSIM chip, does that blacklist clear? I haven't tested it, but I have a theory, because I've had several people who had issues with eSIM not activating when they, like on the iPhone 12 and 12 Pro, the eSIM is actually in the SIM slot, and those are swappable. And if you do a housing swap and you don't swap over the SIM slot, you actually, the eSIM activation, if you were using it, it doesn't connect to the carrier and whatever. Like it has a whole new different eSIM ID. So I don't know. Just a theory. Because one guy said the phone was unlocked, and then they didn't swap over the eSIM, and then now the phone was locked. So it kind of acted like it had a new identity, but I don't know. Would love to hear your guys' feedback. All right, this is new. So like these pads are like, I don't know if I caused that or that's by design. Well, that's weird. that's going to be a problem because it's going to be hard to reball and have that be even. So whoever makes the stencils probably just has to do the 3 circles and then it'll probably even out. But yeah, this is the bottom board. Now let's take a look at the top board. So this is the main board. Let's see. Do I recognize anything? This looks like, well, this looks like audio IC, the main codec, audio codec. This is the A17 Pro, which I believe this model, they didn't even put a logo on there. Let's take a look. A17 Pro. Well, there's an Apple logo, but there's no A17 on there. Let's flip it over. All right, this is the PMIC, the coils. Oh, interesting. So basically everything I know is based on previous models. Usually the Hydra or Kraken or whatever it's called is located here, somewhere around the PMIC. And this is a Texas Instrument chip. It's really large, and I wonder, this is kind of like the charging USB-C charging chip. It's instead of Kraken, Hydra, TriStar, whatever it's called. I wonder if they changed it out for this chip. So basically, got to stock up on this chip because people tend to kill their chargers or kill the board due to their chargers. So yeah, I think this is NFC 1, NFC 2. I was gonna name stuff that I recognize. This is the gyroscope, maybe. I don't know. Kind of looks like it. Audio IC, the CPU, PMIC. I don't know what that is. Kind of looks like a backlight chip, but this has no backlight because it's an OLED model. I don't know what that is. TI makes me think maybe charging chip. Broadcom. What could this be? Not too sure. I guess we'll have to wait till some schematics. These are speaker amps, for sure speaker amps, just to lay out, and there's 2 of them. So yeah, that's the 15 Pro. And I guess one thing I didn't cover is this chip is a 5G chip, most likely. And then this is baseband PMU. Very common for it to short out after a hard drop. And sure enough, let's see. This is a PMX 65. PMX 65 on the 14 Pro Max. What is it called? PMX 65. So they pretty much use the same chip on this version. That's weird. It's funny. Yeah, this is, I know for sure this is an eSIM chip right here, and you see the name ST33J. And on this model, it's upside down, but ST33J. So eSIM here, baseband PMU. So if you drop your phone really hard, this chip can shatter and short out. Or if you do a back glass, well, actually this one's not gonna deal with back glass. The glass breaking tool, where it hits this chip and it shatters. The rest of the chips I don't even know. I think it's another NFC chip, maybe, I don't know. And Wi-Fi, and then I don't know, some other chips. All right, so first let's see if we have a short on this board. Hope I didn't cause any problems. So the 13 connector works for the 14 and also works for the 15. I've tested this earlier, and we don't have a short before prompt to boot, which is a good sign. Next is let's try to short the power button pins to see if we get prompt to boot the device. For good measure, let me plug in the screen so we can actually see if we get an Apple logo or not. All right, so I just know the power button plugs in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually just gonna slide my tweezers while touching ground until my DT80 reacts. There it goes. So somewhere around here, oh, there it goes. And it does boot. Well, we get Apple logo top board only. Although I did test it, it doesn't fully boot to the home screen, but let's see what happens. Oh yeah, look at that. So yeah, oh no, there you go, it shuts off. All right, so it definitely does boot top board only. It has touch, but it's not gonna stay on when you power it just with the DT80. So what I'm gonna do is, all right, so we have screen, board, top board, battery only. And I'm gonna short the power button pin, one of these. And now what sucks about having a battery and not the DT80s, I don't know if I prompted to boot the device. I basically have to look for the Apple logo. All right, so I'm having too much trouble trying to boot with just battery. You know, without seeing the current draw, I don't know whether it's trying to boot or not. So let's just assume the board is good. I didn't cause any new problems. So now let's go ahead and try to prep this and reball it. All right, so this is gonna be tricky because of the new design. Luckily, I don't see any rip pads or oxidize. Oh, there's some kind of oxidation there where the pads look gray. But let's see if we can get this to work. I'm gonna turn on my heater I'm gonna turn it down to maybe like 90 degrees. I do a little lower than what I want because it tends to overshoot the actual temperature I set. So I put 90, but really I want like 120. Essentially I want the board warm so it can allow me to spread the flux easy, and any ground will be really easy to deal with. I wonder if these thick traces here are designed so that when it drops, it doesn't have baseband issues or sandwich issues, like some extra strength. I guess we'll find out in about 6 months, because I'm already getting baseband. I've been getting baseband and stuff like that, sandwich issues on the 14s already. So first step is always to prep the pads with some lower temp solder. So I'm using Kester leaded solder. Essentially, I am prepping the pads because some of these are not in good shape. And we're also replacing the factory solder with, not replacing, but really just mixing in our solder. So bringing the overall temperature down. Now this part is, I think I'm gonna leave that, because this is gonna bulb up, right, like that. You get a giant blob of solder there. So we're gonna come back and wick that, so just something to keep in mind. Essentially we wanna run over every single pad. Alright, this is where it's going to get interesting. We're going to run into these weird pads, which are going to create giant bulbs. Kind of like blobs, because they're like large. Well, here you go. This is where we're going to deal with when dealing with these sandwiches. Large surface area is gonna suck up the solder from the iron. So I'll come back, we're gonna wick it, so it'll be fine. Skip that part, apply some solder there. I guess I'll apply solder here as well and then just wick it flat. The main goal is to just get my solder on here, essentially. Now I do realize lack of flux also kind of contributes to that. Blobs. And then there's a lot of ground here, so having the heater on the bottom does help flow these joints really well. Now I was happy about the 14 Pro Max, how it didn't have, like on the 13 Pro Max, it had like a little intersection. This one has this little bridge here, which is a pain to deal with. The 13 Pro Max had a really small one next to the SIM tray, and it was really hard to kind of reach sometimes. The iPhone 11 also kind of has the same thing, which wasn't too bad, which is a lot more similar. The 15 Pro Max is a lot more similar to the 11 than the 13 Pro Max. But yeah, so let's go ahead and work. Oh, this is where it's gonna suck because things are gonna move around. Alright, so essentially goal is to wick this. By the way, I'll link to my solder wick down below. It works really well. It is a chem wick, solder wick. Like I've been soldering for years, and once I try this one, I'm never going back. It's expensive, but it's really good. Like it doesn't fray at the ends like most any other solder wick. It's really good. Now I'm starting to realize I technically didn't have to wick this. I do want to wick it flat. So essentially I wick it, and then once the wick gets saturated like that, I snip off that, and then I'll have like a newish piece here to continue what I was doing. Let's go all the way in. You guys can kind of see what is happening. I lay the wick, I set my iron flat sideways, and then rub across. And then just go like that. Now you will notice when your wick is saturated is when you're wicking and it still is not leaving flat pads behind. It looks like I'm done. All right, so now that it's wicked, now it's time to clean. Now sometimes, so these foam swabs are really nice. I'll link them down below as well. Let me wipe. All right, cool. Sometimes it'll leave gray oxidized pads, so you gotta be careful. There's a little bit of ISO and wipe it down. essentially ISO. Now, one of the things I didn't mention is make sure you clean the thermal paste, because if you get that on your tool, on your cleaning swab, and you get it on there and then you rub it on the pads, then good luck. You're gonna have a lot of trouble cleaning that off. It's really nasty. Like, for example, this, see how black it gets? It's like sand. It's like really hard to clear out. All right, so that's the bottom board. Next is the top board, and we're gonna do similar thing. So I like to put these like on top of coils, or like let's do it on top of that coil. So while it's on the heater, this allows me to spread the flux. And then we're gonna do the exact same thing on this side. Wow, that's weird. I wonder why they added that. I wonder if that's just for more strength. The rings around the posts holes, that's new. Before it was pads. Now it's just a solid ring, which is interesting. Does anyone know an Apple design engineer? I have so many questions for them. Someone could help them call me, that'd be great. Maybe we could help improve the design. All right, so, I left the spot here. And I think if the hardware engineers, collaborated with repair technicians, they can figure out what is the common faults, repair shops see, and then what they can do to improve their design, for the next model, so that whatever happened the previous model stops happening on the newer model. But obviously, you change one thing, now you could possibly create a whole new other problem. So that's always a possibility. All right, so I'm just gonna run my iron on all the pads. And this part is tricky. You gotta get in between without bridging any solder on the surrounding components. One thing about the recent, keynote or announcement of the new iPhones, basically was, the whole thing was about, oh wow, a big blob of solder. The whole thing was about being green, and one way to be green is to allow you to repair your device. If you can repair it, then you don't have to buy a whole new one. That's way more environmentally friendly than changing the, I don't know, what were the different things they said they were doing different to make the new iPhone greener. One of the things is they took out the charging brick from the packaging. They said they're moving some manufacturing in India, I guess. I actually didn't watch the whole thing. I saw one of those summary videos, but one of the emphasis was, recycled materials and being green and whatnot. But why don't they allow us to repair stuff? I mean, they do have the self-repair store, but it's very expensive parts, and a lot of times, I don't know. I think they definitely have an anti-repair stance. The front camera right now doesn't work if you replace it, even after a restore. I made a video about that. So I don't know. Are they testing for repairability, or are they just a bug that comes up and then they just never fix it? So let me know what your thoughts down below. Is Apple purposely causing issues, or they just didn't test for certain scenarios, like replacing the front camera causes it not to work. All right, I'm trying to wick this. All right, look at that. See how that solder is not flowing? Not enough heat transfer. All right, let's wick as much as we can. Now the technique I'm going to use kind of defeats the purpose of what I'm doing. But basically, I do want to show you guys, you know, once the reballing stencils come out, then this is what you're going to have to do anyway. So let's get in here, fold this up, and then slide down this little path. There we go, I got in. Alright, so this is all real boring. By the way, if you guys want to learn to solder and you're a repair technician but haven't learned to solder, make sure you guys check out the links in the video description. I have a link to our 30-day HDMI, starter solder course. It is a 30-day program. It is all online, so anyone in the world can join. It is pretty much always going, so whenever you're ready to join, just join and you pretty much start right away. And we get live training calls, you get a training portal that you can log into anytime. You got one-on-one support, you have a group chat with all the students. It's a really comprehensive program. It's the founder, Ben, will even promise or guarantee that you will make your money back, or you'll make your money back, if you follow the program, or he'll give you your money back. So pretty much no risk guarantee kind of offer. Tell me what other solder course will guarantee that you will learn to solder or your money back. You all know which course I'm talking about. 5-day in-person courses do not work because they cram as much information, in 5 days, and by the time you get back to your shop, you're busy trying to catch up because you were out of the office for so long, a week. You spent all this money on travel, and then you get back, you gotta go back to your normal stuff, and since you're behind, you don't get time to practice. Next thing you know, it's been 2 months since you attended class. You finally got time to sit down and practice, and what do you have? You literally have nothing. You just have to go off of memory. There's no training exercises you can do. There's no real support program. There's nobody you can just message. It's like, hey, what do I do here? Or what was that thing you mentioned that one time? So something to keep in mind if you're looking to join. Now, I do recommend if you're going to join, you're serious about it as well. Don't just join thinking just joining is enough. You do have to put in work. You do have to attend the calls. You do have to use all the resources. Some people join and then they just never put in the effort, and then wonder why they never learned. And that's true for any course. Whether it's in person or online. If you don't put in the effort, then nothing's gonna change that. It does take practice. You have to spend time under the microscope. When I first started, I basically will spend all nights on trying to repair different things. Like I was watching YouTube tutorials. Every question, every issue I ran into, I'd make a post in the Facebook groups, and then just you know, people would respond, and I would try what they said, and then, you know, go back and forth and take everyone's advice and evaluates, you know, like, oh, this guy said try this, so I tried it, and like, oh, that didn't work. And then somebody else said, oh, try this instead. And basically just kind of worked my way until, you know, eventually, you know, things clicked, and then I didn't need to post so much. And then after, you know, a few months, I already had, you know, paying customers. I had B2B customers, and yeah, it's all history from there. So, long story short, during the course, it's as of right now, it's $1,000 for 30 days. But if you mention me, I can maybe get you 60 days. So check out the link down below. I'll put it here on the screen as well. I'm sure it's already on the screen, but check it out. If you're serious, join it. All right, so top board and bottom board are wicked. So now to reball, I guess. But yeah, let me show you guys what that's gonna look like. All right, so this is what the final look looks like. Now, one thing you need to verify is these pads. So these are ground. See how we get 002, 001, 003. So I already checked them all. All these big ones are ground. So in order for us to reball it, you know, I don't have a reballing stencil. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just tin the pads on both top and bottom board, and I'm gonna skip these because these create big blobs, and it's gonna be real difficult to flatten them out once I get solder on them. So let's do the top board first. I'm gonna set the heater to 100 degrees. This is just so it, just like before, it warms up the board, and I'm gonna use little fingers to hold it in place. And you know, we cleaned it all nice, but it's time to get messy again. Now, what I admit, while I was recording this, I did have a random shutdown on my power breaker tripped. So I don't remember exactly where I left off. But pretty much, now the next step is to reball the sandwich, and we're gonna do reball by hand, meaning we're just gonna use our iron and same way we basically prep the pads, we're gonna do the same thing here. All right, I got flux everywhere I need it except a few little spots. So let me move the little fingers. If you got this far in the video, make sure you comment little fingers. So it's our inside little code to prove that you made it this far into the video. Not that many people make it to the end of the video. Most people drop off within the first few minutes, like 90%. So want to be that 10%, let me know. All right, so let's do the easy part first. And the goal is to create pads that are all even sized. And I'm gonna put solder my iron and then face it down so I leave behind somewhat even sized pads. All right, I'm trying to avoid really large pads. All right, let's rotate it. This is where the heater comes in really handy. Is it applies heat, so it's not just my iron applying heat, so is the heater. So it allows the soldered little pad here to create even solder joints. Oops, that solder ball is huge. So let's get a close-up look as to what I'm doing. So you can see how you gotta apply some solder and then rub your iron back and forth. Now some ground pads are going to be troublesome. Oh, I got some solder in the surrounding caps. Not good. I missed the cap here. I missed the pad here. All right, cleared that. There's a bridge between this and this, which physically is cleared. There's a solder, a little bit of solder here. And, if you haven't noticed, I haven't used any hot air yet. Well, I did use it to split it, but that's different. This iron and heater. All right, let's see if that does it. Now in that process, I did basically wick these pads flat again. All right, so let's continue. So there's two train of thoughts here when we get to those weird pads. Is do we just run your iron over them and then wick the big ones flat, or just skip them all together, but then you have to be real tedious as to making sure you don't accidentally get solder on them, right? So technically, especially in this, this is kind of like a, I don't know, like a challenge here. Like, can I get solder on just the pads and not the ground pads? Just the circle pads. And it looks like that worked. All right. I wonder how long this video is going to be. I missed the pad over here. Oh, I got some on that pad. I'll come back to it. All right, I think this whole part is going to be clear. And that we have no paths to worry about. Oh, we're at the end. Sweet. All right, so we're pretty much done prepping all the pads. Like I said, I'm skipping the ground for now. Later on, once there's a better technique, maybe I'll make a new video. But as of now, this is how I'm gonna reball these sandwiches. And then I'll need to clean it. Clean the flux, because this flux does burn. And if it burns too much, you're gonna not have a clean area to solder onto. The solder joints won't grab. And check out the links in the video description where I will link to these foam swabs They're pretty nice. They're a little expensive. Oh, I forgot that pad. I'll come back to it here in a second. They're expensive in that there's like $10 for a 200 pack. You know, but that's just the cost of doing business. It is worth it. I don't like Q-tips or regular cotton swabs because they get hairs everywhere. This leaves no hairs behind. Very absorbent. All right, so let's see, can I wick this flat? All right, just leave it like that. All right, I don't know if you guys saw that, but there was a little bit of foam hair, so to speak. All right, this is all prepped. Actually, I see a little bit flux there. All right, let's put that aside. Come and do the top board. I mean the bottom board. So I'm just gonna do the same method. Flux the board. And then just skip those weird pads. Or maybe I'll just put a little bit of solder. I kind of don't want to risk it right now, especially because this video is already long enough. Well, if it fails, then I think I'll end the video because I don't want to. That's just my attempt at reballing it. On the 14 Pro Max, I did the same thing and was successful. I've done it several times on other models, like when I'm in a pinch. All right, let's start on this side. Now this part's tricky because you got to stay within the lines, which technically I had to do the first time I ran over the pads, but this time especially because I'm not gonna wick anymore. Oops. And I just got some hair on the edge. Oh well. As long as it's a little bit, worst case we can wick it. Remember, this is being recorded within a week of launch, so there's not much tools or anything available for the 15 Pro Max. So we gotta use this technique. Add solder to all the pads. So the idea is we'll get solder on both pads, the top and bottom board, and then we'll just squish it together and hopefully make a solid solder joint. All right, here's the final boss, or one of the bosses. Oops, got solder on there. Well, that solder is minimal, so maybe I'll leave it. Some weird stuff right here. All right, let's try this. Let me flip it around. Now we got room to work on this side. We go down the line. And there we have it. The bottom board is now prepped as well. I see one pad looks a little dirty here. Let's go ahead and clean this up. Just to clean out all the burnt flux. And do a final visual inspection. Make sure nothing funny appears. Okay, clean. Right. All right, let's take a close look. So we did get some solder in the edges, but as long as you line it up when you're gonna put it back together. Shouldn't be an issue. Also, it's important to clean any excess flux that's like inside. You don't want it flooded with flux. It's just not a good look. So clean it up whenever possible. All right, let's go ahead and give this a try. I think I'm just gonna I don't know how to call it, but just not clamp it down. All right, we're gonna apply flux on just the bottom board. The top board is gonna be clean, and we do want to minimize the flux. You don't want to overflux it. All right, that was weird. I saw something funny here. Kind of looked like dirt, so I'm just kind of spreading the flux to see if I catch anything on my tweezers. I guess not. Maybe it was on the flux. Maybe it was on the flux needle or tip, the syringe tip. All right, so basically we're just gonna lay the board back on top of each other. Let's try to line it up. So the best way to line it up is use the screw posts. Man, it's gonna move around a lot. Having a second set of tweezers does help because you could press down with one hand and maneuver it with the other. I'm gonna bump it into place, and I'm gonna turn this up to, let's do 205, just because that's where I landed. 205. It looks pretty lined up. The goal is to see the perimeter. Oh, I need to push this side up a little bit. See how it's kind of offset here. And then let's inspect. I gotta push. I'm wondering, should I wait a little bit? Let the flux heat up a little bit. I'll bump this up. Oh, I'm gonna bump this. This thing is sliding around. All right. Oh boy, this is tricky because I just let this heat up, I guess. Maybe it'll flow into place. But we do have to push down as well. So maybe that's what I needed to do. All right. Yeah, this is gonna be tough. If I have no luck with this, I'm just gonna have to wait till the Reball stencils come out and then redo it. I definitely don't want to waste a bunch of time. Especially the shape of it, it's so awkward. Alright, I think it's lined up, actually. So that looks lined up. That looks lined up. Let me bump this that way. I'll press down. Let me add some new flux. Maybe the factory flux burned away. This thing caught a bunch of gunk on it as well. All right, so let's see what happens when I push down. Hopefully I don't kill this phone. If I do kill it, then I guess probably need to do the CPU reball. So if I do have to do that, I'll make a video on that. Hopefully not, because I don't want to do that for no reason. Oops. Yeah, it kind of sucks and moves around, but I don't think I have any other options. All right, looking at it from the side. Now, one thing to consider is I use 220 to split it with hot air. Now I'm using 205 just to reflow it. But the reason why I can use 205 because I added my own solder, which is lower temp. So that's kind of the logic here is now that we replace the solder with our own, it is way easier to melt that solder and get it to work. So essentially, I'm just trying to. The goal is to flow those sandwich pads from the bottom board to the top board with the minimal solder I applied using my iron. And I just want to make sure those are all solid. Especially this top area where it's not sitting flat, so I don't know what the heat transfer is like. So let's go ahead and I'm going to turn on the fan on my heater. And I'm going to use these little fingers to kind of clamp it down and hope that this, I'm going to move that a little bit to the side. All right, so let's give it a few minutes, let it cool down, and then I'll test it out. All right, so this has been cooling for a few minutes. To the touch, it feels warm but not hot. So I think it's ready to let go and see what happens. What I like to do here as well is put it on the heat block, soak it in ISO. Oh, I forgot about the connector on the bottom. It's a new obstacle we're gonna have to deal with. So hopefully the heaters that we get will have that connector cut out, like room for it, and then we'll be able to have no issues. So let's take a look under the scope, see if we damage this connector. And one thing to note is, oh, there's a shield that kind of protects it. Well, it's meant for the plate, but it elevates it. So one thing to note is on this model, if you don't have the wireless flex plugged in, it will restart every 3 minutes. So something to keep in mind. Don't mind all the nasty flux. This is just kind of part of the process. You can try cleaning it. Now you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet. The saying goes, we broke some flux, we'll burn some flux to get a sandwich, I guess. I don't know. I think we cleaned it as best we could. Now, the key, most important step here is, do we have a short? So while it's off, I'm gonna plug it in. And no current draw before prompt to boot, which means we don't have a main short. So now this prompt to boot, like before, I'm gonna touch one of these pins. Oh, look at that, prompt to boot looks normal. So that's all I need to see to know the board should be fine. Now the final test, I guess you can say. Let's put it into the housing, which is a nightmare, I'm not going to lie. So let me show you how to put it into the housing. So you gotta come in sideways just like we did before. That's as furthest I could zoom in, but maybe I'll crop in the video footage. So we gotta come in here, extend this flex up and try to line it up. All right, it's plugged in, we're sideways. And then you can then rotate it. Now this antenna right here is gonna get in your way. So you gotta kind of fold these out of the way. Move all these flex cables. And just be very careful you don't break anything. Keep in mind there's also the flex under the board that's is going to be fighting you. It has to fold in a certain way. All right, there it goes. Are we in? Are we in? Kind of. Let me plug in the power button flex. Plug in that top flex. And wait a minute. I left one flex under the board. So let's see if I can do it without. Yeah, I need to unhook this flex here so I could lift up the board enough to. There it goes. Oh boy, this is gonna be a nightmare. All right, power button flex. Cameras. All right, 5G flex goes like this, like that. Let's plug this in over here. Front camera, true depth camera system, which includes the front camera, IR cam, and dot projector. The screen. And then the battery. All right, now time to plug in the charger. So we plug it into charge. We're gonna check the current, the volts. All right, we get Apple logo and we're getting pretty much 9 volts, 1.5 amps. Oh yeah, we're at 20 watts. So yeah, charging looks good. Oh, it vibrated. Now, actually, I think I have Face ID set up. Yeah. All right, so we're at the home screen. Now to see if we get any errors. Oh, look at that. No errors. So Wi-Fi, we got all networks. We got 2 gigahertz. 2.4 gigahertz and a second 5 gigahertz. All right, Bluetooth, we get Bluetooth devices. Cellular, set up cellular plan. So this is working. I obviously can't test cellular unless I activate an eSIM, which I'm not gonna do, but it's all seems to be good. Face ID also works, which is not related to the sandwich, but let's see, Apple Wallet, does this open up? Yeah, it opens right up. So these are all, well actually NFC is on the top board I think, so probably doesn't matter. But yeah, cameras, selfie camera, portrait camera. It's working, so yeah, successful reball. First reball in the world. Okay, maybe first 15 Pro Max reball in Las Vegas. I don't know. But there you have it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this really long video. Hope you guys learned something about the 15 Pro Max, kind of the board layout. I hope you guys found the disassembly and everything that's covered in this video helpful. Let me know down below in the comments what else do you want to learn about the 15 Pro Max, whether it's parts stuff or at the motherboard level. I'll do my best to make a video on it, or at least answer the questions. So drop all your questions down below in the video. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you guys check out my locals community. This is my private group of members where I post a lot of useful information in there. I'm probably gonna post pics of the motherboard split in there as well. So check that out, follow me on there. Make sure you guys buy a t-shirt like this one, Eat, Sleep, Fix, Repeat. That greatly supports the channel, so buy them. Buy them for your friends, buy them for your family, buy them for all your co-workers. Make sure you guys also are checking out the Repair Wiki. This is a solution website where basically we're posting solutions for a lot of iPhone, iPads, MacBooks. There's like people posting about drones and game consoles, so check that out. And lastly, make sure you guys watch this video down below. That is my teardown video. So thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.